I had my dream home, dream property, everything I could ever imagine, a very successful business. I sold all that and we moved into our camper for 6 months. And this is my wife and 4 kids. And our youngest was a newborn. And so we're living in our camper, the start of 2020, and I'm starting a whole new career. And I remember when COVID hit and thinking like, wow, like this might be the end of my new career that just started.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Reanimated Stories. This is your host, Roger, and today I am joined by Dan. And Dan and I actually had met, we had met before without kind of realizing it. And then I got a really interesting email from Dan, just kind of explaining, it was a mass email explaining what he does. And I said, hey, I don't do that thing, but I work with those that do that thing. And I'm trying not to tell you to give Dan his own time to shine. But it was really cool. And then we've actually met in person. He actually handed me a cigar and I didn't realize that that was him. And then we met at a networking event and I said, hey, wait a minute. I know you. And so really great. We've had a couple conversations and Dan is such a wonderful guy. So Dan, thank you so much for joining me today.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for having me on the show here, Roger. I do enjoy doing podcast interviews, and yeah, a little bit about myself and built for the trades. I come from a plumbing background, kind of born and raised into the trades, second generation. And I did that for the first 20 years of my career, owning and operating a family plumbing business, a very successful one that still operates to this day. And around 2018, really my story is a lot faith-based. Like I established a relationship with God, and I really felt called to go into the coaching space and help other small trades businesses build a life that is not just business. I think a lot of times we start a business and our whole life is consumed with that, and we forget the importance of our faith, our family, our relationships, our health. And so I just felt called to start a coaching business that really taught not only how to grow and scale a profitable trades business, but also how to do it in a way where you're not sacrificing the really important things in life. And that's where Built for the Trades was born, and the reason why I called it Built for the Trades is I thought, I want to align with people who are proud to be tradesmen and women, but also are proud to have integrity and really want to grow a business built around that. And because I just felt like there's just so many other businesses out there and coaching communities that really just preach profit, profit, profit at all costs. And I just saw that there was a lot of homeowners out there that were getting, I don't want to say, I guess, screwed by trades businesses that were all about profit. And it just kind of all built up and combined to starting Built for the Trades January 2020, and the rest is history. And yeah, so that's a little bit about myself.
That's cool. So real quick, so you started this in January of 2020. So right before everything kind of just shut down.
I
Is
did.
that so what was that like? Real quick, we're gonna kind of veer off into that for a
Yeah.
second. So what was that like? All of a sudden, are you mainly online based now, and were you mainly online based, or how did that come about?
Yeah, we've always been online based. So, I mean, to continue on my story, it's kind of a tale of two careers for me. I had my dream home, dream property, everything I could ever imagine, a very successful business. I sold all that and we moved into our camper for 6 months. And this is my wife and 4 kids. And our youngest was a newborn. And so we're living in our camper, the start of 2020, and I'm starting a whole new career. And I remember when COVID hit and thinking like, wow, like this might be the end of my new career that just started. But luckily for me, it was always an online or Zoom based platform that we do majority of our coaching through. And it actually helped because we were working with essential businesses that were needed, and the owners were learning how to use platforms like Zoom. And so it really took off. And when I sold the plumbing business, I had a non-compete in the Austin area. So my first client was California, my next was Florida, and also Colorado. So we were nationwide really quick. But 2 years into the business, I woke up one day and realized that a big part of why I started this, beyond just wanting to help other business owners, was also to have a better work-life balance in my own life. I wanted to be able to travel and spend more time with my family and really prioritize my wife and kids, especially my kids while they were young and growing up.
Yeah.
And so at that point, I was like, I need to refocus my attention on Texas, and more specifically Central Texas. And that's when I joined BNI and started networking and meeting a lot of great people. And, now that's been 3 or 4 years since I've started doing that. It's really transitioned the business in a good way to where before I probably had 70% of my clientele outside of Texas. Now 70% is inside of Texas.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that that kind of going back to what you had mentioned at the very beginning and what you had kind of alluded to again here is that, there's all these coaching things, right? I mean, there's the plethora of coaches. I always say for myself, there's 8 billion people in the world, 7.5 billion of them are marketers. Congratulations, you've met another one, right? And it's just sort of the same thing when it comes to coaching, right? It's like everybody's a coach about,
Good.
something, right? And a lot of times it's those like professional or those that we would deem professional, right? So
Mhm.
executives or, managers, but you don't really hear that for the trades as much, if at all. And so when we had chatted, I was like, oh wow, like I don't know if I've ever really heard that before. And I love that where you said that it's not that you're proud to be a tradesperson, whatever form that may be. And I think
Mhm.
that's really great because I think sometimes they just kind of like, oh well, they're getting their hands dirty. They're doing it. They're going to figure it out. They work hard and they do all that sort of stuff. But it's like, how do you also find that balance? I
Yeah.
also have young kids as well. And even in my business, I'm like, well, okay, they're home, and it's like, I want to pay attention. I want to do stuff. But also at the same time, it's like, I got to do, what I need to do. And so finding that balance, I think that that's absolutely just really great what you're doing with that. And I think that that's such a needed segment to really look at because they do work hard. And it's okay. Well, how do I find that balance? So you had started this right there at the beginning of 2020, and like you said, you started to kind of get online, and you're doing
Yeah.
all of that. What are some of the things that kind of led you to, and I know that you kind of alluded to this before, but you were like, man, I really want to help them in their leadership. What kind of led you to hit them specifically? Obviously, you were in that.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I'm like most of the trades business owners out there who started because they were a master at their trade and got tired of being told what to do, wanted to start their own business and really crank it up. And I was involved in a family business. So it was a little bit different, but there's a lot of family businesses out there that are multi-generational. But a lot of what led me to wanting to do leadership coaching and growing and helping people grow businesses is because like my business didn't really take off until 2010 when I hired my first coach. And I started to realize that there's a lot about business I didn't know. There's a lot about leadership I didn't know. And so I'm a student of it, not only through being coached, but also through reading books and going to conferences and really applying what I learned. And so I'm a little different than somebody who maybe is coming from the college educated type style of business coaching. And, that combined with just, understanding, I think a lot of times business owners don't understand the difference between leadership and management. They have a hard time holding people accountable. They're very reactive in their business. And so there's a lot of those factors that come into play with what we do in our coaching. And, I guess the biggest reason why I wanted to do it is because I was that person and I figured it out in my business and was very successful in doing it. And I looked around and I saw there's a lot of other people who haven't figured it out yet. And I thought, how
Mm.
cool would it be to come at it with a very blue collar approach to being like, I'm just one of
Yeah.
y'all. The only difference is I've already been there and done that. And by hiring Bill for the Trades, we're going to help you reduce the amount of mistakes that you would make if you were just going out and doing it on your own. Plus, imagine rubbing shoulders with other trades business owners who are just like you, who have similar core values to you, have similar insecurities to you, that are wanting to grow in all these different areas. And the biggest thing people realize when they come in is like, I thought I was the only one that experienced that has these thoughts, that have these insecurities, these fears, these problems. And it's like, no, like there's a lot of people that have these problems. It's just now you're in a community where everybody's growing together and growing through them.
Yeah. You kind of hit on a couple things right there, especially right there at the end. Oh man,
Mhm.
I thought I was the only one going through this. And I think every business owner kind of feels that, but also at the same time, I mean, if you're in the trades, it's kind of like, am I the only one? I mean, I'm sure they see the other ones like with the fancy trucks, or they see, just the person that's always getting the jobs or whatever. And it's like, feeling these things of insecurity and all that. I think is such community is such a huge thing. I'm a part of a couple of communities myself, and having someone that is similar to what I'm doing
Mhm.
and also them saying like, I don't know if I'm doing this right, or, like, should I be thinking this? And getting to that place of like, one, okay, cool. I'm not the only one who feels like they're an imposter, but also, hey, I've also been there. Maybe I'm a few months or maybe a year ahead of you, but now I can kind of speak life into them and, give them that encouragement. And also, you're right there. And so, you're guiding as well as leading, as well as following, as just kind of walking alongside. So I think that that's great. And one of the big things that is with Built for Trades. I mean, it says it right there. If you're watching this on the YouTube, it says built on a foundation of faith. And so talk to us a little bit about that, because I know that that's a huge part of what you do, of who you are, just personally and also Built for the Trades.
Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, I grew up going to church. I grew up with the Christian walk, but it really, my story and my testimony was, I checked that box every Sunday for the most part. I had my rebellious years as an early adult, but I never spent time in the Word. I never really had a good relationship with God. And in 2018, when I considered myself radically saved, like I, for the first time as an adult, dedicated my heart to the Lord. It was through a series of a lot of traumatic events, losing family members, losing my best friend at an early age, and I was just seeking after what is life all about. And I discovered this book, and actually, I was going to a church in Austin, and John Burke, our pastor, wrote a book called Imagine Heaven, and it was all these thousands of stories and interviews he did of people who had died and came back to life and what they experienced, both heaven and hell and different things like that. And it really led me to just kind of continuing that search. And one day, I was just like, you know what? I'm done with myself. I'm done with this life I'm living. From the outside looking in, I had all the success, I had the revenue, I had the money, I had all the things, all the worldly things. I had a wife and kids, but really, inside, I was probably at my rock bottom. And I remember sitting in church one Sunday, and they had an open altar call for baptisms, and I went up there and got baptized, and the rest was history. They gave me a Bible. I started studying my Bible. I read it. I read the whole thing in a year. And since that day of baptism, I told God, it's like, I'm gonna wake up every day and spend time with you, and I'm gonna seek after you. And it wasn't until that moment, or until that time, that between, getting saved in 18 and then around 2019, I was out on a run because I really enjoy running. And I was listening to a John Maxwell leadership book. And this is what I enjoy just learning as I was working out. And literally, God just stopped me in my tracks. I was listening to a book, and he was talking about his Equip program where he travels overseas. It's a nonprofit deal where he equips leaders and in different
Yeah.
countries where they don't have those kind of programs. And God just kind of stopped me in my tracks and was like, "That's what I want you to do in the trades. I want you to be the leadership expert in the trades. I want you to be the John Maxwell of the trades." And I thought, what crazy? How crazy is that, God? Like, I literally have everything in front of me. I have this career. I'm very successful in what I do. Like, you want me to? And so I didn't really know what that looked like, but I knew at that point, like, I was passionate about leadership coaching. I'm passionate about helping people become better people and reach their potential. And so I really, I went and got certified through John Maxwell's leadership program for coaching, speaking, and training. And it really kind of, it just kind of snowballed forward from there. And it was neat because Built for the Trades wasn't born on that run. It was
Yeah.
all those mornings spending time with God. And today, 2026, I wake up and I'm just so blessed and so thankful that, God and I, we have that relationship, and I have that full dependence on him. And it's completely different. And I was actually having this conversation with a friend of mine the other day. It's like, a lot of times when you talk about being a Christian and having a relationship with God and all that, like, we think about that in the terms of, if you're not saved, you're going to go to hell, or if you are saved, you're going to go to heaven. That's the way I was always raised in the Christian faith.
Yeah.
Nobody, at least I never heard, or I can't say nobody ever told me, but I never really heard the idea of having a walk on earth right now that's a very peaceful, very fulfilling, happy walk of life. And it's not that I don't have a lot of challenges. I mean, I own multiple businesses. I have a wife and 4 kids. I got plenty of challenges, but it's that daily walk with God, knowing that he's going to help me carry the weight of whatever I'm going through. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that that's so key. It's not like, okay, well, I'm a Christian now, I'm a follower of Christ, and now everything is just perfect,
No,
rosy,
yeah.
and everything's just, all good. But we now have someone that we can hold on to that's guiding us and directing us. And I think that's a really important. I think that's really important. Now, some that may be listening may not ascribe to the faith, and that's totally fine
Yeah.
because we're here for everyone. But holding on to someone and really saying, hey, well, what is my purpose in life? And I think finding that is extremely important. And who am I working for? Am I working for myself? Am I working for my family? Working for my kids? And having that faith foundation, I think, is really awesome. And you're having that, and you're doing that. I wasn't aware that you were doing that through John Maxwell, and that's really
Yeah.
cool. I think that's a really great program. So when people come to you in Built for Trades, if they're thinking through like, oh, okay, cool. Well, well, what is it? What's it like being a part of that community? What are some things that you do? Is it still, because I think you said when you started it was all online and you were kind of teaching them. Is it still all online? Still all online? And
Yeah.
or do you do things in person, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's 95% online, and, kinda continue with what you had shared, faith is not a prerequisite to join our community. What is just
Yeah.
being a good person. Like, if you're just putting your best foot forward every day and you're a good person, you don't have to believe in God or not. We have plenty of clients who don't. We're loving of everybody no matter what, but we just wanna have good integrity-based people who are out there trying to build a good business. And, we have multiple different programs. So when I first started, the best advice I got was, all right, Dan, like pick a price, offer coaching, and go after it. And that's what we did for the first few years. But as our team has grown and our community has grown, there's been other aspects that I've always wanted to do, like the community piece. I've always wanted to have a community within Built for the Trade. So we do anything from, one-to-one coaching, which is more designed for businesses that are doing a million plus in annual revenue per year. And they're at a kind of a plateauing point where they want to start building a leadership team. That's when we need to kind of navigate those clients into one-to-one coaching, or they join a mastermind group, which is more peer-to-peer interaction. But we get a lot of clients. I think the younger generations, millennials, Gen Zs, a lot of those clients that are owning businesses right now are hungry for coaching, but they're only doing a few
Mm.
$100,000 a year in annual revenue in their trades business. And so we developed what we call our group coaching programs, and that's where we bring in 6 all non-competing trades companies into a room, and we coach them early in the morning for an hour every week on Zoom, so they can go out and actually perform, the trade work they do. So that's
Yeah.
a great avenue. And then at the very lowest tier, what we offer is our school community. And it's more designed around anybody in the trades. You can be an owner, manager, you can be just anybody in the trades, but the theme of there is that I'm wanting to grow as a leader. I'm wanting to grow my mindset. And so we have platforms for pretty much anybody who wants to come in. Other than that, like in person wise, we'll do trainings throughout the year. We do lunch and learns throughout the year that are in person, but most of what we do is online.
That's awesome. And
Yeah.
is a lot of them, are they going to be like the owners? Have you seen anybody like bring in like, hey, I want to bring in like maybe a team member or a manager or a thing like that? Or do you normally see like the business owner themselves?
It depends on what program they come into, but the
Okay.
common theme is we always work with the owner first before we ever work with
Okay.
anybody else in the organization. It's because leadership is
Yeah.
influence, right? And
Yes.
leadership influence can be 360, but for the most part, it's top down throughout the organization. And so if we have a business owner that says, "Hey, Dan, like I love what you talk about. I want you to fix my employee," that's never going to work out because they're still going to
Yeah.
be the same
Yeah.
person while their team member or their employee is growing.
Yeah.
So everybody's invited, but we always want to work with the owners first. And
Yeah.
really the biggest thing, and like we see with the owners, that they're overwhelmed. Like, you know,
Mm.
the holidays just passed. If you couldn't take off and your business was not producing you money while you were off, both of the trades is a great option for you. We can help you get to that point. So whenever you go on vacation or take off for the holiday season, your business is still producing revenue for you. A lot of times we hear about accountability issues or retention of team members. All those things are things that we help business owners overcome in the trades. But the biggest overarching thing that we stand behind is, like, if you want to build a business that operates without you, we call it self-operating business. then that's
Yeah.
our main focus. That's when you know it's the right place to
That's
come be a part of.
that's really cool. And as you're doing that, as you're helping them do that self-operating business, are you helping them you helping them instituting or implementing? Sorry, I was like trying to think what the word was. Are you helping them implementing like systems and in places like, okay, so like we're, like you're doing this now, but now you're handing this off to somebody or delegating it, and so that you can do this aspect of it. And so you're kind of helping them kind of think through that.
We are. Yeah, we definitely are. So you can imagine, the first thing we do is like the first system we help owners with is just to take a step back and identify what does the next 3 years look like of growth, 1 year, and then we break that down to quarterly goals. Most owners have never thought out past a year. And so to identify what they want to accomplish for the next 3 years is a big hurdle for them. Once we establish that, like we really focus on this year and what does it look like organization structure wise in their business. We help them understand their financials and how they budget for that growth. We help them identify the different positions within the organization. So a lot of those things are very foundational, but like the signs behind me, the vision, the mission, the core values, what I tell people about those is that it becomes the identity of your business. So right now, like if I
Mhm.
didn't have this, Built for the Trades would be Dan Dowdy. But when you come be a part of
Yeah.
the organization of Built for the Trades, the vision, the mission, the core values is really what represents Built for the Trades. So I could be a gone from Built for the Trades and it still has its identity. It's very similar in a business. The vision, mission, core values, it started as my vision, my mission, my core values. But people that also love that vision, mission, core values adopt that as their own and they come in. So now
Yeah.
if you imagine your trades business and you did that and you taught it and you implemented it into your communication with your team members, the next person in line is going to understand it the way that you built it, and they're going to
Mhm.
communicate it the way that you built it, right? And the next person in line is going to do that. So that's how you really scale a great business, but do it in a way where you don't lose your culture.
Yeah.
Is it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's adopted throughout the entire organization.
Yeah, what I was gonna say is you're literally, guiding them, and also, man, words are failing me today. You are guiding them, but then also you are showing that in what you're doing, because you had just said, this isn't Dan's group. This is built for the trades. And so if you were to take a step back, just like you're wanting them, hey, if you take a step back, is your business still going to run? And I think that that's great. Modeling. There we go. That's the word. Sorry.
Yep.
You're modeling that for them in what you're doing. And so I think that that's absolutely fantastic. I think that it's important because sometimes, like, let's just be honest, sometimes when it comes to coaching in groups, it's they want you to kind of stick with them, like
Yeah.
you got to stay with me to keep this thing going. But eventually, I mean, there's going to come a point to where it's like, no, we're modeling this for you. I mean, stick with us as much as you want, but also at the same time, like, look at what you're going to do in your business. And I think that that's great because I think in a lot of businesses, and I would assume definitely in the trades, it's like, well, I'm the one that's doing this. I'm the one that's having to schedule and call and report back and do the actual work, and then having to find all the other things to do. And then I'm gonna have to manage all of these things. And it's, I'm the one that's the bottleneck. I'm the one that's doing all of this. And now it's coming alongside in this community and showing, oh, okay, cool. I can actually step away from certain things, and I can find my, whatever you want to call it, zone of genius, or the
Yeah.
thing that I'm really good at, and really do that well. So that's really great. I think that that's great. If someone was thinking like, hey, you know what, this sounds great. What are some of the things that they need to think of? Like, okay, you know what, maybe, you know what, I've never thought of having a business coach. I've never thought of having a leadership coach. I've never thought of joining this community.
Mhm.
What are some things that you want them to kind of think through that if someone was hearing this, what are some of the things that you want them to think through, or to kind of ask themselves to be like, maybe this is right for you, or maybe coaching in general is right for you? What are some things that you want them to kind of think through and ask?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is you kind of got to be at the end of yourself. You know what I mean? Like you got to be tired of doing the same thing that's getting you the same results, and ready for a change, and ready to invest not only your time but your money into that change. Because you can go out and like you can join the Built for the Trades community on any social platform. You can watch us on YouTube, follow our podcast, whatever you want to do. You can gather free information, but there's something different about free. And then once you invest in it, that layers on an extra layer of accountability. And so I think people listening just need to check in. And if they're at a season where they're growing and their business is growing and they're happy and they're in a great place, like maybe it's not quite the right time for business coaching, but if they're at a season where they're like, okay, I've done all I know how to do in my business and I'm getting the same results every year and I really want more from this, then that's a great opportunity for them to come in and dive in. And maybe they just want to dip their toes in and join the school community, or they want to come and be a part of a mastermind group. But the cool thing about Built for the Trades is we want you to come try it before you buy it. It's kind of unique. Like, come to our mastermind group, come to a group coaching session, check it out. And I offer that, and I have for many years, Roger. And I'd say probably 50% of the people don't join. And I
Oh,
say that just because it's not, Built for the Trades. I mean, we know who we are and what we do, and we know it
yeah.
helps people, but it's not everybody's cup of tea. So that's why I say, come try it before you buy it, see if it's right for you. Because we want long-term relationships with our clients, and we want to make sure it's the right fit for them. And
Yeah. No, that's great. And I think that that's great that you're sharing, like, hey, it's not for everybody and not everybody joins, right?
yeah.
You're not trying to paint your numbers or anything like that.
Oh, yeah.
So one last question, this might be off the wall. Has anybody ever been like, oh, this looks interesting? They've heard of you, but they're not in the trades and they've joined. So, I don't know, realtor or I don't know, something like that, right? Just something that they're not necessarily in the trades, but they're like, wow, this sounds really cool. And then they join and it's like, well, I'm not really in the trades
Not
or
really in
anything
the
like that.
trade.
Have you ever had anybody like that?
Well, I'm a small business owner, so at some point in my business, I've taken on outside ideal
Yeah.
clients, and
Yeah.
and I don't regret it at all. But the,
Yeah.
the more the years go on, the more I really hyper focus on tradespeople.
Yeah.
Now, trades is a big term. Like, we have
Yeah.
clients that do plumbing, HVAC, electrical, roofing, flooring, all these different types of trades. But then we also have, like, one of our clients is photography, and another client is a print
Oh,
shop. So there's other
yeah.
trades outside of just construction trades that we'll take on.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is that relationships are key. So if somebody just wants to reach out and build a relationship, we do want to focus on trades clients, but trades is a big term. So I'm always willing to have conversations. But our main focus is anything blue collar or construction related is the
Yeah.
clients we like to work with. And the other cool thing is, like, I network with a lot of other great coaches. And so if somebody just wanted to
Yeah.
connect and say, I really want coaching, I want something similar to what you offer, I'll be able to refer them to the right person for that.
And I think that's so key and that's so cool, especially about networking. Yes, just like you said, we know who we are, we know who we serve, we can take on certain things, but let me point you to somebody else who I know will fit the bill better than what you're looking for with me, just because of what you're doing and all that. I think that's great. And I'm trying to think through that a lot more, especially this year. I did a solo podcast about that, just thinking about being intentional about, like, hey, you know what, maybe you're not ready for what I do, or maybe like you think that this is what you need. Let me point you to somebody else that may actually be more aligned with what you're doing and can actually help you before or after with what I'm doing and all that. So I think that that's great. Well, Dan, if somebody was listening to this and they were like, hey, you know what, I want to try out one of the things that Dan was talking about.
Yeah.
Where can they find you when they get to do you have a website? What do you want them to do when they get to your website? Where can they find you online?
Yeah. So they can go to builtforthetrades.com and go to our coaching tab. And we actually list all of our pricing on our website, which is pretty unique for coaches. They
Yeah.
can, click on any of those things and book a call with myself or one of our other coaches. And, so you can find us there on our website. You can also find us on all the different major social platforms, and just shooting a direct message. It's a great way to get a hold of us. And once again, like, I'm a part of a bunch of networking groups. So one-to-ones is something I'm used to doing. And I'm always interested in meeting new people. So they can reach out through either our website or any of the social platforms, which is a great way to get a hold of myself.
Awesome. And we will definitely put those links down in the description.
All right.
Well, Dan, I really appreciate you joining me today. I tend to always say thanks for coming out, but none of my guests ever are like in person with me. So thanks so much for joining me today. I really appreciate that. It was great chatting with you and just seeing what you're doing, building all that on a foundation of faith, and also just helping those by also modeling that for them and wanting to encourage them so that they can get the best out of themselves. So thank you so much for joining me today, Dan.
All right. Thank you.